Would you believe me if I told you that a police officer appeared out of nowhere, saved an entire family, and then disappeared as if he had never existed? It may sound like a movie script, but what you are about to hear is a true story, and a deeply moving one. There are times in life when everything seems out of control, when fear takes over and hope is hidden, and suddenly, something or someone appears, changes the course of everything, and disappears as quickly as they arrived. What could this be? Coincidence? Luck? Or could it be a divine sign that we are being protected by forces that our eyes cannot see? Have you ever felt like something was protecting you, without explanation, that strange, almost sacred feeling, that an invisible presence intervened when you needed it most? Maybe this has happened to you, and you didn't even realize it. Many call it luck, others prefer to believe in destiny. But those who have had an experience like this are usually sure that it was something much bigger. It was an angel, an angel. They don't always come with wings. Sometimes they wear uniforms, boots, and carry a flashlight. Today you will learn the story of an ordinary family, on a seemingly normal trip, who faced an extremely dangerous situation on an isolated road, and were rescued in such a surprising way that not even science can explain it. What you are about to discover now may surprise you. There is an invisible presence acting behind the scenes of this story, and the ending may seem impossible, but it happened. An intervention that goes beyond any logical explanation, and that left everyone involved with the clear feeling that they were not alone that night. As you listen, you think, what if it were you? What if, in a moment of desperation, someone appeared out of nowhere, guided you to a safe place, and then simply disappeared, as if they had never been there? The strangest thing is that, when they tried to thank and find this policeman, there was no record of his presence in that area. No police car, no name, nothing, just silence and a certainty in their hearts. They had been saved by an angel. Stay with me until the end, because the last detail of this story is the most unbelievable. Comment if you have ever felt something like this. You are not alone. There are reports all over the world of people being saved by mysterious figures, who appear at crucial moments and then disappear like dust in the wind. Is this just a coincidence, or a sign, a clear manifestation of the spiritual protection that accompanies us, even when we don't even imagine it? This story begins like any other, but ends with a sign that not even science can explain. Stay until the end, because when you hear what happened next, everything inside you may change. And perhaps that is precisely what makes this story so powerful, the certainty that there is something beyond what we can see, a silent but present force that acts when we least expect it. And the most impressive thing is to realize that we are not alone, that there are stories like this spread all over the world, connecting different people through a common experience, the feeling of having been touched by the divine, of having received a sign, a deliverance, an invisible presence, at exactly the right moment. If you've ever felt something similar, tell me in the comments. Your story could touch someone today. Maybe someone is going through exactly this right now, and reading your words is the push they needed to believe they're not alone. Each comment you leave here carries energy, and that's what keeps this space alive. Tell me, what did this story remind you of, and if this topic makes sense to you? If you also feel that there is something greater guiding our steps, then show that you are here with me. Like this video, because it really helps this message reach more hearts. It is with your presence here, with your like and your comment, that this type of content reaches further, finding people who may need a word, a reminder, a sign. This channel exists because there are people like you who are feeling awakening, and wanting to understand the mysteries of life in greater depth. So, if this speaks to you, subscribe. This shows that you want to continue this journey with me, that you are open to seeing the invisible and hearing what often goes unnoticed. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with stories like this, with reflections that touch, with signs that transform. And now, take a deep breath, because what comes next is even more surprising. In today's video, you'll learn a true story that defies logic and reinforces the idea that there is something greater protecting us. An encounter with the inexplicable, and perhaps, with an angel. When we talk about spirituality, divine signs, or the action of invisible forces, many people immediately shut down, as if they were hearing something that doesn't fit into palpable reality. But what if the hidden truth lies precisely in the details that most people ignore? What if the greatest miracles happen silently, behind the scenes of our existence? The story you are about to follow is not just a curious tale. It is an invitation to expand your consciousness, to reflect on the invisible that accompanies us, even when we are not aware of it. This experience, lived by an ordinary family, in a moment of extreme vulnerability, shows us how a simple decision, such as choosing a route, leaving a few minutes earlier or later, can put us in front of something extraordinary. Life is full of encounters that seem casual, but carry a much greater purpose. And when this purpose manifests itself, the impact is so profound that not all words can explain it. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is something in this story that goes beyond an encounter with a possible angel. There is a recurring pattern in many accounts of spiritual intervention, the sudden appearance of a protective figure at the exact moment of greatest despair. This is no coincidence. It is a reminder that we are in constant contact with something greater, something that observes, that acts, that responds, and perhaps when we are more open, we can perceive these manifestations more clearly. The veil between the visible and the invisible is thinner than it seems. The family in this story was on a road surrounded by dense forest. No signal, no lights, no escape route. The car had skidded, their cell phones were no longer working, and the night seemed even darker than usual. The feeling of fear mixed with absolute helplessness. And it was precisely at that moment that something inexplicable happened. A figure appeared, illuminated only by the headlights that no one saw coming. He said he was a police officer, but there was no patrol car, no radio, and no one else around, only him. And yet, the family felt a peace that did not match the chaos of the situation. What this reveals is something deeper about our human journey. There are times when everything seems to fall apart, but at the same time, something invisible keeps us standing. It could be a look, a word, or even a presence that we cannot explain. This story makes us rethink what we call reality, and invites us to pay more attention to the subtle signs, to those strange coincidences, to the sensations that make our skin crawl for no logical reason. Perhaps spirituality is much more present in our daily lives than we imagine. Another curious thing about this experience is the timing. Everything happened in a matter of minutes, but it was etched into the family's memory as if it were ours. The mind tries to understand, seeks logical explanations, but the heart already knows. It already understands that it was something divine. And this difference between reason and intuition is precisely what separates those who live on autopilot from those who are awakening. Because this is what awakening is, perceiving the invisible with the eyes of the soul. Now I want to show you something. Have you ever noticed how these experiences of deliverance, protection, or inexplicable peace always happen when we are most fragile? It is as if the universe was waiting for us to let our guard down to act. As if the mind needed to get tired so that the spirit could see. And this pattern, this synchronicity, is repeated in many accounts of angelic intervention. They are stories of people saved at the last second, guided by strangers who later disappear, and marked by an inner certainty that no doubt can erase. These experiences are not just isolated events. They are reminders, warnings, invitations, and sometimes even calls, because when something like this happens, it is as if the world around us stops for a second to tell us, you are not alone. And maybe, just maybe, this is the most important message we need to hear. There is a presence that accompanies us even when we do not see it. A kind of silent but powerful love that appears at the right time and leaves without asking for recognition. Now, I want to take you down another path. What if the presence of that man dressed as a police officer was not just an angel on a mission, but also a reflection of what is awakening within each of us? A mirror of our own power of protection, of intuition, of connection with the divine. Because when we hear stories like this, something inside us lights up. Something recognizes, and it is this, something that connects us to a more subtle, deeper level of reality, where miracles happen far from the spotlight, but close to the heart. Comment here, I felt that too. It was supposed to be just another ordinary trip. A family like so many others, returning home after an important visit, traveling along a country road they were already familiar with. The clock read, a little after 8 at night when they entered the most isolated stretch, a road surrounded by forest and silence, where the darkness seemed to swallow everything. The father drove carefully, the mother tried to calm the children in the back seat, and the radio played softly, like a discreet soundtrack for that peaceful ride. But one unexpected detail was enough to change everything. It was a seemingly simple curve that started the sequence. The fog suddenly appeared, thick, dense, like a curtain closing the scene. Visibility dropped in seconds. The wet asphalt, combined with the fright, caused the car to skid slightly. Nothing serious, at first, but enough to leave the main road and get lost on an unmarked dirt road. One of those old forks forgotten by maps. The GPS stopped, the cell phone signal disappeared, and the feeling inside the car changed, from tranquility to growing anxiety. Now I want to go even deeper into this point. Because it is precisely in these moments when the mind begins to lose control that the soul begins to hear more clearly. It is when logic no longer has answers that we begin to realize that perhaps there are invisible decisions shaping our steps. At that moment, the family found themselves surrounded by a forest that seemed to have no end. The silence was almost oppressive, and the branches of the trees, illuminated only by the car's headlights, created shadows that looked more like movement. And that was when real fear set in. The mother, her voice already choked, said that something was wrong, that they needed to go back. But the path already seemed unrecognizable. It was as if they were inside a place where time had stopped. And it is exactly at these moments that many people report feeling something different. Not a physical presence, but a kind of deep intuition, a silent message saying, You are not alone. The inner transformation begins there, when instinct stops being just reaction and becomes perception. When we begin to feel that there is more to this journey than just our conscious choices. And what comes next shows how even the most ordinary situations can become portals to something much greater. The car began to fail. The lights flickered, the engine sputtered and finally turned off. Darkness took over everything. The children began to cry. The father tried to remain calm, but his eyes betrayed the growing despair. It was at that point that something changed, a sound coming from the forest. At first soft, almost imperceptible, like footsteps on damp earth. Then clearer, sharper, steady, a small, distant light, as if someone were approaching with a flashlight. And then, the silhouette. Now I want to go even deeper into this detail. Because here comes the point that completely escapes rational explanations. The figure that appeared walking slowly towards the car did not seem scared. He had a firm posture, a calm look, and was wearing a police uniform. But where did he come from? How did he know they were there? And why was there no sound of a police car? No other sign of help. The man did not say his name. He simply instructed the father to turn the key again. Miraculously, the engine started again. "Follow me," he said. And the strangest thing, the road, which had previously seemed to have disappeared, was now there again, clear, as if it had never disappeared. During the journey, no one spoke a word. It was as if a silent field had taken hold. The car followed the man, who walked ahead, illuminated by a soft light. When they reached a safer section, the police officer simply looked back, nodded, and disappeared. Literally, disappeared. The father stopped the car, ran out, looked in every direction. Nothing. There were no footprints, no sound of footsteps, no trace that anyone had passed by. It was as if he had come from another dimension and returned the same way. Cried, hugging the children. She said, between sobs, that she had felt something inexplicable in that man's gaze. It wasn't fear, nor strangeness. It was peace. A peace so intense that for a few seconds her heart was silent, as if she had stopped to listen to a message. And perhaps she had listened. Perhaps that encounter was more than just a helping hand. Perhaps it was a message. A subtle reminder that, even when it seems we are alone, there is a force surrounding us. Something that watches us and takes care of us behind the scenes of life. Even if we are not aware of it. And it is at this point that we begin to understand the impact that this type of experience generates. Because it changes everything. It changes the way we see the world. It changes our mindset. It takes the focus away from absolute control and takes us to a place of trust, surrender, and perception. It is as if, after a moment like this, life gains a new layer of depth. Decisions change. Priorities change. Our very vision of reality changes. Because once you truly feel the presence of the invisible, you never walk the same way again. What was the strongest signal you ever received? Comment below. The road that had once been firm and familiar had now disappeared beneath the fog. A thick, almost supernatural mist took over everything in a few minutes, as if someone had pulled a cloak over the road. The car lost grip. The sound of the tire skidding against the wet asphalt was still echoing when everything became a whirlwind. An involuntary swerve, a poorly calculated turn, and suddenly, they were off the road. There were no signs, no headlights from other vehicles. It was as if they had entered another dimension, a space between worlds, where time slows down and instincts become more acute. The vehicle stopped in a dense forest, where the vegetation seemed alive, too close, as if it were watching in silence. Dad tried to remain calm, but his hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Mom, with wide eyes, looked around for some sign that this was just a mistake. But the silence was overwhelming. No sound of the road, no birdsong, just the sound of their own racing hearts and the grumbling of the frightened children in the back seat. And it was there, in that fraction of time between fear and helplessness, that something invisible began to move. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there are moments in life when external reality collapses and what remains is internal sensitivity, our connection to something beyond the body, beyond reason. This is when our mindset changes. When faced with danger, we realize that we have no control over everything and, perhaps never did. It was in this state of silent surrender that the mother, through suppressed tears, began to pray softly. It was not a rehearsed prayer, it was a genuine, almost childlike cry. If anyone can hear us, please help us. This request, sent to the invisible, reverberated in that space like a cosmic whisper, and perhaps it was heard. Because soon after, the atmosphere changed again. Not the atmosphere outside, but the one inside. Fear gave way to a strange, almost absurd calm. It didn't make sense. They were still lost, still without signal, still in the middle of a dark thicket. But there was something there, a presence, an energy field that seemed to say, everything will be okay. And when that feeling takes over, even chaos seems to reorganize itself. The father tried to start the car again. Nothing. The battery was dead. The headlights went out completely, plunging everyone into total darkness. And then came the sound. A crack. like twigs being stepped on. At first, they thought it was an animal, maybe a deer, or some other woodland animal, but the noise was rhythmic, constant, footsteps, heavy, and then, a light dim flickering, coming from far away. Someone with a flashlight. But who would be out there, at that time of night, in that isolated area, in that fog? And even stranger, how did they know there was someone there who needed help? The tension increased, but instead of fear, there was silence. A respectful, almost reverent silence. The light approached, and with it, a figure. It was hard to see his face, but his uniform, his posture, and the firmness of his steps made it clear. It was a police officer. He stopped a few meters from Lakari. Didn't say much. He just gestured with his hand, indicating that he should roll down the window. When the father answered, the man said in a low but firm voice, "You need to get out of here. Now follow the light." Now I want to show you another side of this story. Because this type of encounter is not just physical, it is energetic. It is as if the environment were transformed into something sacred for a brief moment, as if the entire scene were removed from common logic and placed on a higher plane, where other laws operate. The mind, of course, tries to understand. Was it really a police officer? Where did he come from? Why did he know exactly where to find them? But the heart already knows. It recognizes the vibration of that moment. That was a sign. A subtle touch of something much greater, that acts when no one else can. The most impressive thing was what happened next. The man walked ahead, and the family, without even thinking, started the car. Yes, the engine started. By itself. Without explanation, no click, no insistence. It just started. As if that vehicle, dead for minutes, had received a new charge of life. They slowly followed behind the figure. The road seemed to open up as if by magic. The fog gave way to vision. And in less than 5 minutes, they were back on the main asphalt. The father braked. He wanted to thank him. He wanted to know the man's name. But when he looked in the rearview mirror, there was no one. Nothing, no trail, no footprints, no reflection of the flashlight. He got out of the car, called out, shouted, absolute silence. The forest became forest again. The night became night again, and the certainty that they had been guided by someone, or something, that did not belong only to this world became impossible to deny. Speak in the comments. I am a chosen one. The cold came as a warning. Not just any ordinary cold, but the kind of cold that penetrates beyond the skin and reaches the spirit. The kind that silences words, that makes the body shrink and the mind go on alert. The temperature dropped so fast it seemed impossible for it to be natural. Inside the car, the windows began to fog up. The children, huddled in the back seat, shivered and cried softly. Their mother hugged them as best she could, but her arms were stiff with tension too. Their father, with his forehead resting on the steering wheel, took deep breaths, trying not to collapse. The cell phone battery had run out minutes before. The GPS had failed long before that. And now, all that was left was silence. A silence so dense that it seemed to scream. There were no cars, no sign of life. Only the forest. Only the fog. Only the suffocating sensation that time had stopped there, as if the world had forgotten them. The minutes passed slowly, like hours. The mind began to imagine the worst. The heart, racing, beat hard as if it were trying to compensate for the lack of answers. That was when the mother, with a choked voice, murmured the first request. If anyone is listening, if there is a higher power, we need help now. It was more than a prayer. It was a surrender. And with it, something began to change, not around, but inside. Despair gave way to a kind of emptiness, a lighter silence, almost as if the space had been cleared for something new to enter. The prayer was repeated, and this time, it was accompanied by a sincere cry. The surrender, finally, happened. That was when the father's eyes filled with tears too. He squeezed his eyes tightly, as if holding back a pain that comes from within, and he asked. For the first time that night, he asked too. Now I want to go even deeper into this moment. Because it is precisely when we let go of the arrogance, of control, when we accept that there are things greater than ourselves, that the energy changes. It is in the depths of the emotional abyss that many find the light they did not know existed. There is a hidden truth in this. Sometimes, help only comes when we stop crying out for it and start feeling it with our hearts. That family's prayer was not rehearsed or memorized. It was raw. It was real. It was like a spiritual password that unlocks forces we do not understand. And there is something very special when the cry for help comes not from anger, but from humility, because it was no longer a matter of asking God or the universe to solve a problem, but rather, of trusting that there was a greater intelligence operating beyond human vision. And it is at this point that the mindset changes, that the inner journey reveals itself. That moment, even if shrouded in fear, was also a point of transformation, of rebirth, and that, in itself, was already a form of miracle. The silence outside continued, but inside the car, something subtle began to happen. The mother said she felt an inexplicable warmth envelop her shoulders, as if someone had placed an invisible blanket over her. The father, who had been shaken before, now felt his hands grow warm. The children stopped crying. And then, as if coming from a place where time is different, a faint light appeared between the trees. It was no ordinary light. It did not flicker. It did not move quickly. It was just their fixed point, inviting, like a silent gaze, saying, "I have come to get you." The sensation was immediate. The presence was real. Even without seeing clearly, everyone in the car knew. It wasn't human. It was as if the request had been answered in a way that defies any logical explanation. And yet, it was impossible. To doubt, fear gave way to a quiet reverence. No one said anything, but everyone felt it. There was something there, something that answered without speaking, that guided without touching, that brought peace in the midst of the storm. The father decided to get out of the car. His feet sank into the damp earth, but the cold no longer bothered him. He walked toward the light with slow steps, as if respecting an altar, and as he got closer, the outline of the figure became clearer. It was the same man as before, or someone very similar. Police uniform, firm posture, but no badge, no name, no police car. Just presence. He didn't speak. He just looked, and in that look, the father felt something he would never forget: absolute love. Without judgment, without haste, without demands. A love that welcomes and protects, even without being asked. Now I want to bring a new layer to this experience, because when we look at all of this through the lens of logic, none of it seems to make sense. But when we look beneath the surface, we realize that the real impact of a moment like this is not in what was seen, it's in what was felt. That's the difference between appearance and truth, between what is visible and what is eternal. This wasn't just about a light in the dark. It was about an awakening, a revelation, a silent call saying, "There is more, much more. Show me that you are here with me." Writes, I continue. It was as if time had stopped for a second. A beam of light cut through the thick fog, breaking through the pitch black that enveloped the family car. It was a solitary headlight, but steady. The light did not come from a police car or from any visible vehicle. It simply appeared as if it had been switched on behind the scenes in the physical world, as if a portal had opened for just an instant to allow this intervention. The silhouette of a man began to form as he approached, his steps calm and purposeful. His uniform was clearly that of a police officer, but there was no identification, no radio, no conventional signal that connected him to the local forces. The father looked at his wife with a confused expression. She was holding his hand tightly, trying to decipher what they were witnessing. The figure stopped next to the window and knocked lightly, as if he didn't want to scare anyone, but knew he needed to be heard. When he lowered the window, they heard the voice, firm, deep, without hesitation. "You need to get out of here now." It wasn't a tone of fear or desperation. It was an order that carried peace. A command that couldn't be argued with, because it carried within it a certainty that was hard to explain. The father tried to ask questions, but the man just nodded and started walking ahead, illuminating the way with that small but incredibly powerful light. Now I want to go even deeper into this moment, because there is something about this kind of experience that completely transcends logic. It is not just about what the eyes see, but about the vibration that is installed. It was as if this man was not just guiding, he was reorganizing the space around him. Time seemed to flow differently, as if the seconds were under the control of another intelligence. The transformation that occurs in these encounters is not just physical, it happens internally, in silence, and changes the entire mindset of those who experience something like this. The road, previously invisible, began to appear before them, like a carpet being unrolled. The father, almost hypnotized, started the car, and the engine ran as if it had never failed. The steering wheel felt lighter, the brakes more precise, and even the air inside the vehicle seemed purer. The mother kept her eyes fixed on the figure ahead, trying to find logic, but at the same time knowing that there was no explanation. It was as if this policeman was real enough to be present and invisible enough to remain beyond human understanding. And there is a hidden truth behind this. Sometimes the invisible reveals itself in the form you need it most to trust. If they had been faced with something too ethereal, they might not have had the courage to follow. But a man in uniform, with quiet authority and a firm presence, was exactly the manifestation that this family needed at that moment. This is the intelligence of the spiritual. It does not appear as we want it to, but as we understand it. And the impact of this does not end in the moment. It echoes throughout the journey, shaping decisions, adjusting routes, and revealing paths that were previously closed. The man walked slowly, driving as if he knew every turn. The fog seemed to respect him. It parted discreetly as he advanced, allowing the car to pass safely. No sound came from the forest. It was as if the natural world had stopped to watch this sacred rescue, and everything inside the family fell silent too, not out of fear, but out of reverence. It was the kind of silence that only occurs in the face of the sacred, of that which does not need to be understood to be real. Now pay attention to this, because when they got back to the main road, where the streetlights were once again appearing in the distance and the asphalt was regaining its safe shape. The man stopped. He simply stopped. He turned around slowly, looked at the car one last time, and disappeared. He didn't run. He didn't climb into any vehicle. He didn't walk away through the trees. He simply disappeared, as if he had been taken back to where he came from, as if his mission had been accomplished and he had returned to the backstage of the world where the eyes don't see, but the soul recognizes. The mother burst into tears, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. She said she knew that somewhere inside her, she had felt it before. The father got out of the car, ran to where the man had been seconds before, searched, shouted, nothing, no tracks, no footprints. The fog had completely dissipated. The road was dry, clear, as if it had all been a dream, but with a power so real that it would never be forgotten. And here's the thing, when such a sign crosses your path, you are never the same again. There is a change in the frequency with which you see life, a clarity that does not fade with time, because what was felt cannot be undone. Have you ever experienced something like this? Share it below, and the most curious thing of all is that, even after they were reunited with the road and returned safely home, that feeling of presence did not go away. It stayed with them, as if something invisible was still with them, silently guiding each step from then on. It is as if, after touching this type of energy, life became different. Priorities change, the way you see the world changes, and that feeling of being truly protected begins to be part of your daily life. That is why, if everything you have heard so far resonated in some way within you, perhaps you are ready for something deeper. If it makes sense to you, take a look at the material I left below. Reading Your Birth Angel, it's something I've prepared very carefully for those who really want to connect with personalized guidance from the angelic kingdom, especially in moments of transformation, important decisions, or when we feel like we need clearer direction. This content may go offline at any time, so if it's useful to you, take advantage of it while it's still available. It's here in the description, but I may take it offline in the next few days. It complements what we've talked about here, and can save you a lot of time and practice. Especially if you've already felt that there's something bigger guiding your journey. They couldn't explain how this was happening. It was as if that man or whatever he was knew exactly where to go. The road that appeared ahead seemed as if it hadn't been there minutes before. Every curve, every sign, every clearing, everything seemed to open at the right time, with a precision that was impossible to ignore. The father, while driving, constantly looked in the rearview mirror, trying to understand how that policeman managed to remain visible in the midst of almost total darkness. But he was always there, firm, with the posture of someone who didn't hesitate, like someone who already knew exactly how the story would end, long before it began. And this is one of the deepest hidden truths. When it comes to spiritual presence, it comes before our fear. It doesn't arrive when we've already given up. It arrives when there's still a thread of faith, however tiny. The mother, who had been completely silent until then, squeezed her children's hands and whispered words of thanks, not to a specific name, not to a religious figure, but to something greater, something that knew, saw, and acted, even when everything around her said otherwise. It was an instinctive recognition, as if the soul knew who it was dealing with. Evan. The mind was still trying to comprehend. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this type of intervention has an impact that goes far beyond the physical. The rescue itself is just the tip of the iceberg. What happens inside people after this is the true miracle. There is a change in perspective, a break from the automatic mentality that conditions us to see everything as a coincidence. Moments like these force us to pause. And in this pause, the inner world reorganizes itself. What was once just a coincidence begins to reveal itself as part of a greater plan, of a silent construction that works behind the scenes of life, aligning the pieces that our eyes cannot see. As they left the dense forest and entered the main road again, the sensation inside the car was different. It was as if a new atmosphere had settled in. A reverent silence filled the space. Not of fear, but of certainty. The man's presence was still there, still in front of the vehicle, until, a few meters from a lit gas station, the first sign of civilization for many miles, he stopped. The car stopped with him. The father opened the door, got out, ran towards him. But he was no longer there. There was no one, no sound of footsteps, no engine, no presence. He simply, disappeared. Now imagine what goes through someone's head at that moment. There was no logical explanation. The mother came down right away, looking around with wide eyes, asking, "Where is he?" The children, curiously, were not scared. One of them said, with the naturalness that only a child can have, "He's gone, Mommy. He was an angel." That pierced the parents' chests like an arrow. That was exactly what it was, said with the simplicity of someone who still sees the world with the eyes of the soul. And sometimes, that's the only way we can see what is always in front of us. The gas station attendant, already shocked by the sudden arrival of that muddy, exhausted family, still unable to understand everything they had experienced, swore he had not seen a single police car pass by. Not a patrol car, not a motorcycle, nothing. And the most shocking thing was that the stretch of road where they had appeared had been under construction for weeks. It was blocked. No vehicle could leave that stretch, but they did. How? This only reinforced the feeling that something bigger had guided each step. It was not just help, it was an invisible, precise operation, driven by a force that goes beyond common understanding, a journey within the journey, a silent revelation. From that moment on, nothing was the same. That event left its mark on the family, not as a trauma, but as a turning point. They began to notice signs that they had previously ignored. Small synchronicities, vivid dreams, sensations that had previously been dismissed as impressions. The oldest son began to draw pictures with wings. The youngest daughter said that she felt the man in uniform near her when she was afraid, and the parents began to trust the invisible more, to pray more truthfully, to give thanks even when there was no apparent reason, because they knew that they were being seen, heard, and guided. If you're watching this far, comment, "I won't stop here." When the family finally reached a well-lit area, the man dressed as a police officer was there, standing firm next to the car, like an anchor that kept everything under control. But in the blink of an eye, he disappeared. There were no goodbyes, no clear signs of where he had gone. There was no parked police car, no siren in the distance, not even tire tracks on the road as if he had never been there, except in the memories of those who lived through the unexpected. This sudden disappearance is one of the most enigmatic parts of this story, a true invitation to reflect on what exists beyond the visible, the concrete facts and the rational explanations that we normally seek. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when we delve behind the scenes of these experiences, we discover that the impact goes far beyond the moment itself. It's not just about someone being physically saved. It's about the internal transformation that occurs when the hidden truth reveals itself, however subtly. It's a change of mindset, an awakening to something greater, a journey that challenges our understanding and invites us to question the decisions we make, the meaning of chance, and the very structure of reality. This kind of intervention forces us to rethink the way we understand time and space. Man's disappearance into the light is not just an act of magic or miracle. It is a revelation that there are forces at work behind the scenes of life, forces that work to align our paths with purposes we do not yet fully understand. This hidden truth sometimes manifests itself in moments of crisis, when the mind and body are at their limit, and only outside help could make the difference between despair and salvation. And it was at this moment that the family's mindset began to change profoundly. They not only regained control of the car or the safe route home, but they received a silent wake-up call to realize that their lives would never be the same. The journey, until then marked by fear and uncertainty, began to have a new meaning, that of a spiritual rebirth, an opening to the understanding that, even in the darkest situations, a light can appear to guide our steps. It is not uncommon for people who experience such episodes to speak of an inexplicable sense of peace after the event, as if they had touched the very essence of what it means to be protected, loved, and watched over. The impact of this does not just remain in memory, echoes in the heart, influencing future decisions and shaping the way we deal with challenges. The invisible presence that acts in these moments reveals a layer of reality that many ignore, but which, when recognized, can be a source of renewed strength. Furthermore, the sudden disappearance without any physical trace reinforces the idea that this help came from a plane that transcends our usual logic. It was not an ordinary presence, but an entity that acts on another frequency, connected to a higher intelligence that guides and protects. This revelation, in itself, can be a turning point for those who experience it, opening doors to a new way of seeing the world and relating to what is still invisible to the naked eye. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this experience is essential to understanding how our mindset can be shaped by interventions that seem like miracles, but that carry very ancient wisdom. These are moments that challenge reason and, at the same time, invite us to expand our consciousness, to connect with a broader reality full of deep meanings. The way we react to these signs can define the course of our lives, revealing the importance of the decisions we make when faced with the inexplicable. When we reflect on this story, we realize that true transformation happens in the details that most people don't see. On that deserted road, under the fog and fear, the encounter with the angel policeman was not just a physical act, but a call to awaken to the truth that exists beyond what is apparent. An invitation to accept that there is more than what our senses can see, and that, often, salvation comes from where we least expect it, even if it disappears before our eyes. If you felt this energy, say, "I receive." In the days that followed the mysterious and inexplicable encounter, the family could not get that serene, firm, and at the same time profoundly calm figure out of their minds, who seemed to have appeared not only to help them, but to protect them from something much greater than they could understand at that moment. The gratitude they felt was immense, and the desire to personally thank that man, who seemed more like an angel disguised as a police officer, grew with each passing moment. They needed to know who he was. They needed to understand where that presence that appeared like a beacon in the darkness of the night and the dense fog that surrounded them came from. So, overcome by this urgency, they decided to look for any trace of that encounter. The police car he had used, some record, any clue that would confirm the existence of that man who had crossed their paths at such a critical moment and, in a way, saved their lives. However, the reality they found was completely different from what they had expected. Not to say surprising. When they went to the local police station, full of hope, the response they received was a disconcerting silence and a total lack of information. There was no record of that night, no police officers sent to that isolated road, no police car that had passed by. It was as if it had all been a dream or an illusion, an event invisible to the eyes of the world. It was as if the Savior, who had given them hope and security at that moment, had never really existed on the physical plane. There was no one to thank, no name to remember, no address to visit, only the firm certainty that something beyond human understanding had happened. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this type of revelation serves not only to pique curiosity, but to show a hidden truth that many avoid facing: the existence of invisible forces that silently interfere in our lives, guiding our steps and protecting our path even when we are unable to perceive it. When palpable and logical reality cannot explain what has been experienced, we are invited to go beyond the surface and accept that there is a much greater journey, one that goes beyond the material dimension and that cannot be understood with the rational mind alone. This lack of official records is one of the strongest pieces of evidence that there are subtle and discreet interventions, coming from angels or spiritual guides, that operate behind the scenes of our existence, influencing decisions and preserving lives without revealing themselves openly. This experience, by its very nature, promotes a profound internal transformation, an impact that goes beyond the simple narrative of what happened that night. When our mind is confronted with this hidden truth, it begins to question the essence of reality itself, the nature of existence, and the purpose of our personal and collective journey. What previously seemed absolute and immutable begins to be seen from a new perspective. Decisions and choices that were made automatically begin to be thought about more consciously, and our mindset expands, making room for a restless curiosity and the comforting feeling that we are being guided by something much greater than ourselves. Furthermore, behind the scenes of this story that could have been just another extraordinary tale, we can see an even more profound effect: the way these events change the way people relate to the unknown, the invisible, and the mystery that permeates life. The search for answers, even if fruitless on a material level, ends up opening doors to reflections that touch the soul and promote significant internal revelations. The family involved in this episode began to look at life with a new perspective, more attentive to signs that had previously gone unnoticed, more open to perceiving the subtleties that indicate the presence of something greater. The lack of concrete evidence, far from diminishing the impact of what they experienced, only increased the mystery and the certainty that there was something extraordinary at work in the most decisive moments. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding the real impact of these experiences on our spiritual journey is essential to accepting that the world goes far beyond what we can touch, see, or measure. The invisible presence that protects, the guide that appears and disappears without leaving a trace, are powerful symbols of a greater truth, a force that is present in each of our decisions, in each step we take throughout life. This revelation invites us to embrace a more open mindset, one that values not only reason but also intuition, feeling, and the subtle connections that shape our reality. It is an invitation to recognize that life is made up of layers and that not everything that matters can be explained with words or documents. This story, above all, shows that sometimes the answers are not found in official records, in material evidence, or in human logic, but in the impact that they have on our personal transformation. And it is this transformation that guides us to a new way of living, more connected, more conscious, and more aligned with who we truly are. A life in which each challenge becomes an opportunity to grow, where fear becomes a door to the unknown, and where each sign, no matter how small it may seem, is a light that illuminates the path in the darkness. What does this awaken in you? Tell me in the comments. The mother of the family repeats this phrase with such deep conviction that it is impossible not to be moved when hearing it. That was no ordinary man. He was an angel. I felt peace in his eyes like I have never felt. In my life, it is not just a vague memory, forgotten by time, but a living, almost palpable experience that still beats intensely in the hearts of everyone who was present on that fateful night. The serenity she perceived in that look, mixed with an inexplicable security, goes beyond any rational explanation. It is as if a much greater, invisible, powerful, and benevolent energy had manifested itself there, at that exact moment, showing that, even in the darkest hours, a silent force acts to protect and guide those who need it most. This feeling of peace and acceptance is not something that can simply be ignored or underestimated. It transcends the physical world, crosses the barriers of logic and the tangible, and reaches the core of our being, stirring the essence of who we are. That woman felt something that not only calmed her fear, but that, in a way, transformed her. It is a connection that goes beyond common understanding, something that many would describe as contact with the divine or the supernatural. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this experience that the family went through is not a rare phenomenon or an extraordinary coincidence, but rather a manifestation that happens in many lives around the world, even though few pay attention or know how to explain it. People from different cultures, beliefs and backgrounds report moments when an invisible presence or a being with a special light appears to offer them comfort, protection, or even guidance that completely changes the course of their lives. This type of encounter, although often fleeting and subtle, has the power to profoundly transform the way we see the universe and our own existence within it. This feeling of profound peace, this hidden truth that only the heart recognizes, works as a calling, a summons to rethink our mindset, to expand our perception, and to make decisions with a new awareness, especially in times of crisis. When everything seems to be falling apart around us, it is this delicate yet powerful energy that opens invisible doors, breaks down internal walls, and frees us from the paralyzing fear that often prevents us from moving forward. It drives us to begin a true journey of self-knowledge, healing, and rebirth. It is not simply an isolated episode in the history of that family, but an invitation for all of us, at some level, to make room for this transformation to happen in our own lives. This experience is a clear sign that there are behind-the-scenes moments in life that go far beyond what meets the eye. Silent, profound spaces where true revelations and changes happen. They are far from cold reason, material evidence, and skepticism. Subtle signs flourish, invisible touches that connect us to a greater and more complex reality. It is in this realm of the invisible that genuine transformation is born, the kind that stirs our soul, changes our perception of what is possible, and leads us to understand that life is much more than simply existing. The family, upon feeling this mysterious presence, found more than a momentary savior. They found a new way of seeing their own journey, more open, more aligned with the intangible, and deeply connected to the grandeur of existence, even if we still don't know exactly where this journey will take us. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the meaning of encounters like this challenges us to expand our understanding of what we call reality. Reality is not just what we can see, touch, or measure. It also includes everything we feel, everything that transforms us from within, everything that alters our emotions, beliefs, and the way we face life's challenges. This invisible transformation, born from the recognition of a greater force, profoundly changes our relationship with the world, inviting us to trust in a force that operates behind the scenes of existence, even when there is no concrete evidence to suggest its presence. This new mindset, the result of a transformative experience, has the power to change the course of our decisions, preparing us for future challenges with a renewed conviction that we never walk alone. It brings us the awareness that, even in the face of the unknown and adversity, there is always a guardian presence, an invisible support that guides and protects. It is this perception that can be the key to facing life with more courage, more hope, and renewed faith in the journey we are taking. This story, so full of mysteries and meanings, invites us to open our eyes to a hidden dimension in our lives, where the impossible gains meaning and hidden truths are revealed to those who have the courage to look beyond appearances and limited logic. It is in this invisible place that we find true peace, the same peace that the mother of that family felt in the gaze of that mysterious and serene man. A peace that is not just a passing feeling, but a transformative force capable of calming the restless heart and giving strength to move forward, even when everything around us seems uncertain and unknown. If this energy touched your heart, if this message resonated with something you have experienced or felt, be sure to share it. Show me that you are here with me. Right? I continue. How many times have you heard stories about angels appearing in human form? Perhaps, at unexpected moments, they are exactly where we least expect them, disguised among us, camouflaged in the daily routine, in the simple gestures and words that seem so common, but carry an invisible weight of purpose and protection. This idea is not just a distant fantasy or a fairy tale to comfort hearts, but a hidden truth that crosses cultures, religions, and centuries, inviting us to look beyond appearances and realize that, deep down, our reality is much more complex and full of layers than it seems. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because recognizing that these beings of light can be by our side in discrete forms completely changes our mindset about what we consider possible. It challenges us to open our eyes to the behind the scenes of life, to the invisible forces that silently act, shaping our destiny and protecting our path, even when we have no concrete proof. This revelation directly impacts our decisions and the way we face challenges, as we become aware that we are not alone, that the human journey is permeated by a support network that goes far beyond the tangible. The concept of angels in disguise. is not just to fuel the imagination or hope, it is an invitation to a profound inner transformation. When we begin to accept that there is something greater, that there are invisible beings who can guide us, we are led to develop a new mind that values intuition, that looks for subtle signs, and that trusts the impact of the small things that happen in our daily lives. This shift puts us in tune with the hidden truth that governs the laws of the universe, where the intangible plays a fundamental role in creating our reality. This story that you have seen shows, in essence, how a seemingly simple encounter can open a window to a much broader perception of what life is all about. It is not just about angelic presences, but about the ability that we all have to recognize and accept the intervention of the invisible. It is the understanding that protection and guidance can come in unexpected ways, which do not always fit into what logic and reason teach us to expect. This prepares us for a journey of self-knowledge, where each sign, each gesture, can be a fundamental piece in building our path. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this hidden dimension means understanding that our decisions do not happen in isolation, that we are part of a complex web of influences and connections that shape our destiny. This awareness has a profound impact on the way we view our choices, because we realize that they are accompanied, guided, and supported by something that goes beyond what is visible. The transformation that arises from this understanding strengthens us, because it gives us the conviction that, even in the face of uncertainty, there is a benevolent force working behind the scenes, ensuring that what is best for our growth is achieved. This vision expands our ability to deal with obstacles, as it reminds us that each challenge is also an opportunity to grow, to align ourselves more deeply with our purpose and with the greater truth that governs the cosmos. Knowing that angels can be disguised among us is, therefore, an invitation to develop a more refined listening, a greater attention to messages that arrive through unexpected channels, and to connect with that which transcends immediate understanding. It is a way of living life with more courage, faith, and hope, knowing that we are not alone on this journey. Reflecting on these angels camouflaged among us brings us face to face with a powerful and transformative truth, that protection and guidance can emerge when we least expect it, through ordinary people who carry an extraordinary light. This light, even if discreet, has the power to profoundly impact our lives, change our trajectory, and guide us towards decisions that, in the long term, reveal themselves as true gifts from the universe. The story we have just explored is a clear example of this, where the invisible manifests itself through the seemingly ordinary, revealing the secret behind the scenes of life. If you've ever felt like someone appeared in your life at just the right moment, like an angel in disguise, share it with me here, right? I'm on this journey too. In the Bible, in Hebrews 13:2, we find a passage that invites deep reflection. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for some have entertained angels without knowing it. This phrase, simple at first glance, carries a spiritual authority that has echoed for millennia, reminding us that divine interventions often arrive disguised, camouflaged in everyday life, in ordinary gestures and people. This teaching reveals a hidden truth that transcends time and space, indicating that the world we perceive with our senses is only the surface of a much more complex reality, where the invisible acts in an impactful way, guiding and protecting. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this biblical passage is not just a moral lesson, but an open door to understanding the constant presence of forces that transcend our rational understanding. In many similar experiences reported by people around the world, we see that these encounters with angelic beings or spiritual guides are not isolated events, but part of a universal journey, an invisible support network that sustains our journey. This knowledge challenges us to expand our mindset and recognize the value of the subtle signs that appear when we are most vulnerable or lost, bringing to light a real transformation that can impact every decision we make. This connection between the spiritual authority of the scriptures and everyday experiences shows us the behind the scenes of faith and existence. It reinforces that we are not alone, even when we feel isolated or directionless. There is a silent, often invisible, but powerful presence that acts in decisive moments, influencing the course of our journey. This revelation broadens our understanding of what it means to be protected and guided, and how spirituality can manifest itself in practical and real actions, even if we do not immediately realize it. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because integrating this understanding into our daily lives requires a profound change of mindset. The hidden truth that the scriptures reveal to us is an invitation to develop a greater sensitivity to messages that arrive through unexpected means. This transformation allows us to see beyond appearances, to understand that hospitality goes beyond physical gestures and manifests itself in the opening of the heart to welcome the unknown, the different, the invisible. This new attitude can have an immense impact, shaping the way we face challenges and opportunities, always with the conviction that we are supported by something greater. Furthermore, when we consider these experiences in light of Scripture and contemporary narratives, we understand that the spiritual journey is neither linear nor simple. It is a journey that involves constant decisions, learning that happens behind the scenes of life, revelations that do not always come in the form we expect, but that have a lasting impact. This awareness prepares us to face adversity with greater strength, wisdom, and faith, knowing that each step, even those that seem lonely, are part of a greater plan, supported by a spiritual authority that transcends human understanding, the authority of Scripture and the experiences of encounters with angels in disguise. Also remind us of the importance of humility and openness to mystery. The mindset that leads us to seek answers and concrete evidence is necessary, but insufficient to grasp the totality of what happens in the spiritual realm. We need to embrace the unknown, accept that there are truths that cannot be measured, but rather felt, perceived in the impact they have on our being and our journey. This openness is an essential step in aligning ourselves with the transformation that these encounters provide, allowing our lives to gain new meaning and purpose. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because from the moment we internalize this message, we begin to see the world through different eyes. Reality expands and begins to include not only the visible, but also the signs, the unexpected encounters, the sensations that guide us. This perception is an invitation to develop a more refined listening, to pay attention to the details that we previously ignored, to the small miracles that happen in our daily lives and that carry an invisible force capable of transforming our existence. This change of focus is essential to understanding the real impact that spirituality has on our decisions, our personal growth, and the way we relate to the universe. This encounter between the sacred word and personal experience creates a powerful bridge capable of transforming doubts into faith, fears into courage, uncertainties into conviction. It is in this confluence that a new mentality is born, a way of living that recognizes the constant presence of the divine in all things. Especially in the most difficult moments and in decisions that seem challenging, faith ceases to be just an abstract belief and becomes a tangible force that shapes our reality and drives us forward towards transformation and alignment with the greater purpose. If you have ever felt this silent presence, this subtle guidance that appeared when you least expected it, talk to me here in the comments. Comment, this message was for me. Have you ever stopped to think about what you would do if you were in that family's shoes? Imagine the mix of fear and despair, the cold that runs through your skin, the fog that seems to swallow everything around you, and then, out of nowhere, a figure appears that brings peace and security, a stranger who seems more like an angel than an ordinary person. The doubt quickly arises. Would I be able to recognize this sign? Would I know how to accept this help when everything seems lost? These questions are more common than we think, because all of us, at some point, go through experiences that defy logic and reason, leading us to confront the hidden truth that inhabits our existence. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this connection we have made is not just a matter of chance or luck, but an invitation to reflect on the journey each of us is experiencing. How many times have you felt that strong intuition, that silent push that prevents a disaster or opens an unexpected path? These are the moments that shape our decisions, that directly impact our personal transformation. In the complex web of life, these signs act behind the scenes, silently and powerfully, guiding us to choices that we often do not understand immediately, but that make all the difference in the unfolding of our story. The impact of these experiences goes beyond mere momentary relief. It touches something deep within us, a change in mindset that redefines the way we see the world and ourselves. We come to understand that reality is much broader than what we perceive with our physical senses. This expansion of consciousness allows us to accept the presence of the invisible, to recognize that we are not alone, and that even when everything seems chaotic, there is a greater force working in our favor, protecting us and propelling us towards our purpose. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because accepting this hidden truth implies an internal decision, a transformation that demands courage. Changing our mindset to embrace mystery and the unknown can be uncomfortable, as it challenges our need for control and certainty, but it is precisely in this process that growth resides, the true journey of self-knowledge. Decisions made from this understanding are different. They carry a simultaneous weight and lightness, because they arise from a deep connection with something greater than ourselves, with the essence of life that pulsates in every detail, even the simplest ones. This reflection also invites us to pay closer attention to the behind the scenes of our own existence, to look for signs that we often ignore in small coincidences, unexpected encounters, and subtle sensations. Life, with all its complexities, is full of disguised revelations, moments that, at first glance, seem ordinary, but that carry a powerful meaning for those who are willing to see. This attentive look can transform challenges into opportunities and doubts into certainties, preparing us to face the next phases of the journey with a renewed attitude, full of faith and determination. The question remains, what if it were you? How would you react to a deliverance that you cannot explain? How would you deal with the feeling of having been protected by something invisible? a sign that you are not alone. This personal connection is what makes this story so powerful, because it is not just about distant accounts, but about experiences that reflect a reality that is possible for each of us. Recognizing this possibility is opening the door to a real transformation, to a mindset that embraces uncertainty with courage, and that sees life as a great journey of discovery and constant learning. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because accepting that we are part of an invisible network of protection and guidance gives us a new perspective on the decisions we make and their impact on our path. When we understand that there are forces acting silently to guide us, we begin to face challenges with more confidence, knowing that we are not alone, even when everything seems to indicate otherwise. This conviction transforms not only the way we face difficulties, but also the way we perceive our role in the world, awakening in us a greater awareness of the meaning of life and the importance of each choice. If this story touched you, how about sharing what it awakens inside you? What energy did this bring to your mind and heart? Tell me in the comments. Comment, I am a chosen one. If this story touched your heart, it is because, deep down, something in you resonated with this message that goes beyond the visible, that crosses time and space to remind us that we are never truly alone. It is this connection that gives us the strength to carry on, even when the path seems uncertain and answers take a long time to arrive. When we understand that help can come in unexpected ways, that the forces that act behind the scenes of life are much greater than we imagine, we begin to see the world with different eyes that are more attentive, more open to the signs, to the subtleties that indicate that there is an invisible protection that is constantly acting around us. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this perception that angels can be present, often disguised among us, challenges us to transform the way we view our own stories. Our mindset changes when we begin to believe that, in the midst of difficult decisions, there is an invisible support that not only observes, but intervenes, that directs our steps so that we do not lose our way. This understanding impacts our journey, influences each choice, and invites us to have a more receptive and confident attitude towards the unknown, towards that which we cannot control, but which we feel deeply. This transformation of perspective, this expansion of consciousness, is what can really make a difference in critical moments. Because when we trust in the existence of something greater, we stop living in fear and start living in hope. The hope that comes from the recognition that we are not isolated, that our decisions are accompanied by a force that transcends the human. This force, this subtle presence, silently guides us and leaves invisible but powerful marks on our lives. It is these revelations that help us rebuild our faith, not necessarily the faith linked to a specific religion, but faith in something that is greater than ourselves, in a hidden truth that manifests itself in unique and personal ways. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this journey of discovery and transformation is, in essence, a universal human experience. At some point, we all experience moments of doubt, fear, and disorientation, and often it is precisely when we feel most vulnerable that this invisible help manifests itself. Recognizing this means accepting that we are part of a complex network, where the impact of each gesture, each decision, echoes far beyond what we can imagine. Life, with its twists and turns, offers us constant opportunities to open our minds and hearts, to recognize the revelations that arise when we least expect them. In the simplest, most everyday moments, this story reminds us that help can come from the most unexpected places, that the supernatural can present itself in the form of the ordinary, and that angels, if they exist, may indeed be walking among us silent, discreet, ready to act when our journey demands it. This understanding opens the way for a more open mindset, one that values mystery, embraces transformation, and understands that each decision can carry a spiritual weight and an impact that goes beyond our own lives. It is an invitation to live with greater attention and sensitivity, attentive to the signs that guide us in the invisible. If this energy spoke to you, write down, I receive. What does this awaken in you? Tell me in the comments. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you for joining me in this special conversation. The connection we created throughout this video is something that deserves to be valued. And if this story touched your heart or opened a new perspective on what may be beyond what we see, leave a comment below. I'm with you until the end. It's a simple way to show that we're together on this journey of discovery and transformation. Take advantage and leave a like too, because that helps to strengthen this community that seeks more meaning and hidden truth in every step of life. And look, there's a video here that complements this subject in an incredible way. So click and stay with me there so we can dive even deeper into this journey that's just beginning. I want to see you there.